Hi, this is Craig Lane with the next part of the sequence here. We're going to be talking about slide 8 here, finishing up. So these are some things that I haven't delved into personally as much, but on slide 8, there's some information here that's worthy of noting, and that things that I see in people's irises too is that the chronic sinus issues on note number 4 listed here, and note how low back pain is often present with chronic sinusitis. Very interesting. Most parasites are outside of the gut. They are deceptive, as I said. They're deceptive, adaptive, and difficult to eradicate. I said that earlier. I've known that for many years, but hearing a physician say it's often very validating. How cancer is related to parasites and dental issues and heavy metals. Number 3 is particularly interesting. Parasites bring various microbes with them. And there was a saying once that I love this, that small parasites live inside of larger ones. So, if we have parasites inside of us, we ourselves could be considered parasitic on the earth. And then, the smaller gets larger and larger and larger. So if you think about a biofilm and it's a connected, intelligent community working together, it sort of sounds like human communities in and of itself, doesn't it? Especially the way the humans are living on the earth currently in an unsustainable way, I would judge, and most people that I know would judge. I love the idea number 5 about treating nasal staph infections or other types of chronic sinusitis with these nasal sprays or neti pots. The neti pot with salt and baking soda and different types of, and a little bit of xylitol. I thought that was fascinating. And then I like the, by using a urine nasal spray, I thought that was particularly fascinating too, that a physician was going to this urine with iodine. Totally fascinates me. I thought that was, even drinking urine. I know that there are people that I've spoken with directly that have said they've done urine therapy. I'm not suggesting that, but I may actually try that myself this week. This sounds fascinating, and I'll give you guys a report at the end of the week and in week 4 presentation. Slide 9 is about the biofilm. Note number 5, chronic sinusitis is a biofilm. Again, this is from that same conference. These are not my words. This is quotes and notes taken from that conference from the website link listed earlier on this. So some interesting things. Biofilms are normal given the larger context for there's a mucus or a slime layer around the intestines. So there are normal and abnormal biofilms. I want us to be clear about that, that when you hear the word biofilm, you're going to hear a negative connotation with it, just like with mucoid plaque. But that is not the case here. Yes, we want to get rid of the unhelpful biofilm, which is feeding the bad microorganisms. But no, we don't want to get rid of the biofilm itself, because then we end up with an empty, barren gut like a desert, and we need microorganisms to help feed ourselves. As we've talked about, the gut cells themselves have the hair with the enzymes on it, so to speak, or the villi. And you'll note how many issues are related to biofilms: dental issues, heart disease, Alzheimer's, skin problems, colitis, autism. There goes back to this old school of thought in Oriental medicine that there were people that treated just the gut and all the other conditions got better. And I'm definitely of that category myself. And remember, the most important thing you can do are your food choices, drinking enough water, and chewing your food well, not eating when under stress. There's some real simple things we can do, and we're the ones in control. Slide 10. We don't talk about mold or candida necessarily. Candida is a form of mold in the form of a yeast, and it can be parasitic. And this is more information that I got. Again, just this particular website was just loaded, and it was sent to me from a friend. That a lot of the basis of the conference was on Lyme disease, and then there's all these other adjunct talks about parasites, how they're related to Lyme's, and just fascinating stuff. And then this first number here on slide 10 talks about our buildings and how we have wood frame structures with a plastic bag wrapped around it. And I never thought about that, but it's an interesting, we create a mold growing culture in our homes, and that what I'm seeing with the bioengineering in the atmosphere, i.e. the name for it is chemtrails, is that there's mold being bioengineered in these weird strings of seemingly looking like fabric that falls from the sky, and these microscopic pieces that are being analyzed um, now. And the mold counts are very, very high in these aerosol clouds or chemtrails as they fall to Earth. And these high mold counts, also when mold is exposed to EMF, as it says in number 2 there, the mold had 600 times more biotoxins when it was exposed to EMF. So we have these moldy homes, we have EMFs in the home, i.e. Wi-Fi, radiation, televisions, wiring, cell phone towers, and then we have this mold problem. And I think that one of the main problems is that we need mold to survive because they eat decaying matter, but we only want a little bit of mold in our body because molds can create mycotoxins to defend themselves as parasites and bacteria do. So one of the example solutions that they came up with, was I thought was interesting, is to inhale myrrh essential oil via an infuser. And they also believe that chlorella and raw fish oils were very, very helpful. And the chlorella binds with heavy metals, and like it says in number 8, there are molds incorporate heavy metals to protect themselves from white blood cells. And I've seen this in live blood cell analysis through Ingrid Naiman. And the white blood cells are killed by the mercury, but the molds are not. And that number 5, I thought was particularly noteworthy. The intelligence of normal bacteria, like to that of mold, is like that of a cabbage to an elephant. Molds are far more critical than bacteria. And then parasites are like elephants squared, which I thought was interesting. So in terms of intelligence, they're all intelligent because there's all this primal adaptation that occurs, that we can do certain things, but we've only got so much control over what they're doing. But what we can do is make better choices. And again, they're tapped into our nervous system, so we want to be careful about how we think about them. In terms of this week 2 focus, then, since we're evicting the bad tenants, we want to make sure we're not feeding them. So if you can work less, even take time off of work and eat very light, are easy to digest proteins this week, including just really, really diluted chia seed desserts. Chia seeds in hot water is a great thing to live on. You can either grind the chia seeds into a powder fresh, don't let it sit out. If you grind your chia seeds, at least get it in the freezer or the refrigerator immediately and use them within a week. Raw egg yolks are very easy to digest. If you want to make bone broth, that's not listed here, but I just came up with that, would be very easy to digest, and you could live on that a bit. And yogurt and kefir will kind of allow the probiotic factor. And then bitter greens listed here, and there's other bitter greens you can pick in your garden, plantain, dandelions, all kinds of options. You could eat garlic and onions in various forms all week in high amounts. That will help a lot. Radishes are always indicated in this situation. And basil, you can make a yummy pesto with basil and then put lots of garlic in it. And you could do, that's where you could add a little tiny bit of nut in there, like a tiny bit of roasted almond butter, tiny bit of raw tahini. Probably better not to have the roasted almond butter but the raw, but I find the flavor is just incredibly compelling. And you could put yogurt in your pesto instead of cheese, or miso would also work, because miso chelates heavy metals. There's some juice ideas there. Beets are going to be really, really helpful, especially a little bit of beet juice or beet kvass. If your gut isn't too irritated, the raw beet salad would be fantastic with the olive oil and the lemon juice. Olives are high in potassium. Consider having some propolis this week. A little bit of propolis mixed in a little bit of honey and aloe would be a great little remedy. You could have a little bit of that throughout the day, maybe a teaspoon total. A tablespoon total if you did maybe a half teaspoon of propolis, two teaspoons of honey, and a teaspoon of aloe, or 2 teaspoons of aloe, 1 of honey. And then there's some anti-parasite herbs listed there, of which some of them are very common. And then mustard greens can be really helpful too. Chopped up and topical on the body, eaten, juiced. Mustard seeds are hot, so you don't want to do that unless you're using mustard, unless you're running a bit cold, which means you would not have yellow, orange, or green mucus. You would have clear or white mucus. Prepared mustard with apple cider vinegar or rice vinegar would be acceptable. And try that out. I think you might be surprised at how well you do with some of these herbs. And again, there's that whole idea of essential oils and things. Try to do as many liquids as possible this week. The less we're using its digestive energy, the more we're going to have for our immune function to kick out these bad guys. I know that was my best success when I was doing a liquid diet. I even was doing raw milk, which I don't suggest nor is recommended this week for you. But it was used well by me and to get some worms out. And then some of my favorite ideas are listed there at the bottom of the slides. Juice with raw egg yolk and chia seed is a great drink, and then raw egg yolk and yogurt is another option. And then soups with that pesto I mentioned earlier. Garnish could be great, like a cilantro, basil, and parsley pesto would be fantastic. Slide 13, I have a challenge. Richard Anderson of the Arise and Shine line has a book called Cleanse and Heal Thyself, I believe. Cleanse and Purify Thyself, excuse me. And as the story goes, he was out on a wilderness trek with his Native American teacher, and I don't remember how many days he did so, but I know it was a number of days, and all they ate were raw onions. And he thought that he was pretty clear, just like I did a couple of years ago. I thought that I had gotten through the worst of my parasite issues, but I realized that one of the bigger layers of the biofilm still hadn't come out, the black tar and some of the worms, as he found out too. So he's eating raw onions only, because that was the remedy told to him by the Native American. And then on, I don't remember if it was day 3 or day 4 or day 7, but at one point they couldn't go any further, and then they had brought in, it was just some pasteurized milk with them, and he brought like a quart of pasteurized milk. He poured it into a bowl, and he squatted down over it, and lo and behold, this half-alive worm, tapeworm, I believe he said, was about a foot long, crawled out of his ass and landed in the milk. And it's just one of those things where you just go, holy mackerel, because the worm had been so challenged and poisoned by the onions in his body, all the sulfur and all the stress, had worked its way down to his rectum, and then it may have been uprooted from its biofilm community, which means it wasn't tapped into what he was thinking, and so it was trying to work its way out, and then it smelled the milk or sensed the milk through him and crawled out. And one of the grossest stories I've ever heard, but I have done some follow-up research on that, and that is used in some anti-worming or parasite therapy where you squat over a bowl of milk after a period of anti-parasite therapy. I'm not sure if I'm recommending this or not, just worthy of note there. It would be a challenge to you if you thought that you could eat garlic, raw onions, various things from only vegetable juices and teas, and no fruit, no protein, nor much fat for a whole day, and then do the milk thing and see what would happen. Boy, I don't think I'm going to try it, but at some point maybe I will in the future. There's some lists here of Qatar on slide 14 of anti-mucus foods and herbs from an herbal sort of encyclopedia, and you'll note that a lot of these I don't even know, but I know chamomile and coltsfoot are fairly common. English daisies are fairly common. Echinacea and elder, flower, eyebright, fenugreek, garlic. A lot of these herbs are fairly common, and you can make tea with them, and they are great for clearing mucus, which is going to clear out some of the biofilm. You have some worm herbs and foods. That's pumpkin seeds there, by the way. Yes, that is pineapple, which is a fruit. That is papaya, as long as you have the seeds with the papaya. Epazote is a famous Latin herb, and then you have lots of herbs for fungal infections there. Note again the black walnut, which you'll see under worm therapy also. And you don't see wormwood listed here, but wormwood should also be under worms. I don't know why that's not there. And then there's a number of viral herbs listed there also. Next week, we're going to be going over MMS as another potential therapy. We will not be going into it this week as much, but it's just something for your information. There's some fascinating stories about MMS and success stories. I personally have gone through it, and it's just an interesting study. And I will tell you this, that it's basically like oxygen therapy. It's oxygen and chlorine. It's called chlorine dioxide, what the molecule ends up being. And I have a young autistic child with one of my more clients in the periphery through Noel, that this young autistic child, the mom started giving him MMS orally and then some liquid minerals up the other end. And I've seen the photos myself. She's been documenting her success with him and seeing his behavioral changes for the better. I mean, immensely better, his behavior. And that's just one of those examples of how deworming therapy helps the whole body. And in this case, helping this child's behavior. And then next week, we're going to go spend some time going over talking about shape-shifting microorganisms and how that's what biopleomorphism is. And they're out of that same conference I've been citing in this particular PowerPoint. They are talking about that also. So think adaptation, and there's a whole other website that I'll be referring to about the biopleomorphism. So enjoy your cleanse this week. If you just want to go with the regular foods and not do anything super special, then so be it, you know. But have a good time and really enjoy yourself, do the best you can, and don't stress about the shoulds, because this is your first time through or you're in your first year of cleansing therapy. Realize that you change the oil in your car every year. We aren't educated to be cleansing, and be soft, be easy on yourself, and that anti-parasite, antifungal, flora changing therapy is anti-aging therapy. Thank you, and have a great, great week. Stay motivated, stay supported, and this is a week to be really impeccable. Remember, keep those violent thoughts to a minimum. Think prune the tree. Good luck.